not the last that you are going to hear from this book or hear about this book. We're going to be producing it over the next few months, and it's a lot of fun. There's going to be updates throughout, so be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, the Sound Booth Theater Live channel. And yeah, also be sure to check out the Facebook group, Sound Booth Theater Live, the Facebook group, as well as my own Facebook page. Groups, pages, it's all so much. Anyways, here we are. Gonna record some voices. It's a bit of a surprise today because I had a bunch of recording to do before this and wasn't able to get to the booth earlier, which I normally like to do. I like to get in around, 10 or 11 or so. So it's going to be a bit different today. A little bit later, no James, just going to be me. Before I jump into it, I just want to congratulate Jeff on another release, as well as Athon, our friends over at Athon Books, in coordination with Sound Booth Theater, has released a book called An Unexpected Hero. And that is available on Amazon, and the audiobook is also available on audible.com, and it is an absolute blast. I got to play a couple voices in there, and there is tons of music composed by the great Aaron J. Morton, and some songs sung by Jeff himself. It is an absolute blast of a title, so I highly recommend you go and check that out. Go pick it up today if you can, and spread the word. If you like it, tell your friends, tell your loved ones, tell your dog, buy a copy for your dog so that your dog can listen, because maybe your dog will like it. Who knows? Maybe this is the next step in domestication of these animals. So yes, it is an absolute blast. I highly recommend you go check it out. It is out today, and that is An Unexpected Hero by Rhett Bruno and Steve Beaulieu, and narrated by Jeff Hayes and the Sound Booth Theater team. It's a full cast production, so you don't want to miss it. Go get it. Go do it now. Okay. Before I jump into, well, maybe I'll do this afterwards. Okay, I'm just going to jump right into I Am Legion. Boop, 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 ba-doo, boo. Now let's make sure that you guys are able to hear. There we go. Now you should be able to. There we go. Voila. And say hello in the chat if you are there, if you are here. I'd love to know that you exist today. All right, here we go. Got to get into my posture. I'm a tough guy. I stand with great posture. I've got muscles like tires. Very strong. Very, very strong. Hello, Dillian. Oops, someone just messaged on. Just messaging James now. Let me see. James might be joining. There we go. There we go. Chapter 6. Chapter 6. Green light flashed over the doors in a rippling sheet of energy. I skidded to a halt, sliding over the damp stones to avoid crashing into the barrier, and dropped the girl to the ground. She stumbled and fell, but swung back to bring her fists up at me. "Wait here," I roared onto my... "Wait here. Wait here. Wait here. Wait here." I reared onto my hind legs and clumsily signed to her in ASL. That she had not expected. Her eyes widened in shock as I put my feet back down, turned and charged into the fray. The temple was now complete and total chaos. The stag and the saber-tooth battled to the death, horns and fangs locked in a raging inferno that had killed at least 3 of the panicking hellpigs, who were also butchering each other. Rooster was screaming at the hyena boys, Clive was screaming at his pyro-maw, Blaze, a few of the reavers were screaming at me, and the rest were screaming at the 30-foot-tall, 4-armed zombie gorilla that had spawned into the middle of the blood path. And the rest were screaming, I can do it cooler. Rooster was screaming at the hyena boys, Clive was screaming at his pyro-maw, Blaze, a few of the reavers were screaming at me, and the rest were screaming at the 30-foot-tall, 4-armed zombie gorilla that had spawned into the middle of the bloodbath. Venara the Glutton, or whatever the fuck his name was. Venara the Glutton, or whatever the fuck his name was, grabbed the nearest hellpig and ripped him in half like a Christmas bonbon. I didn't go straight for the boss because I wasn't fucking stupid. No, I went for the sensible target. The easy target, the flaming saber-tooth. It was taking damage from the stag I'd freed and was looking worse off than the fiery deer fucking him up, torn to shreds by the Runtina's scorching antlers. I was betting that it was also not expecting me to launch myself across the room onto its back. "Blaze! Blaze! No! Blaze! No! Blaze! No!" Clive shrieked over the racket. "What the fuck is happening? What the fuck is happening?" Blaze roared. "What the fuck is happening?" Blaze roared and spun away from the stag as I landed on it. I clung on with all limbs, riding it like a bronco, and snapped my jaws down around its thick throat. Fangs buried through stinking fur and pierced deep into flesh. The stag bellowed, turning on a hoof, and Donkey kicked the cat right in the jaws. The blow snapped Blaze's head back and shattered one of its fangs at the base. Blaze yowled in agony, then burst into flames. The fire engulfed me with searing pain, the first real pain I'd felt since arriving in this hellhole. Hell. The fire engulfed me with searing pain, the first real pain I'd felt since arriving in this hellhole. On instinct, I arched my tentacles up and drove them into the cat's ribs from either side. Soul drain activated. Time slowed to a crawl, and the world lost color and focus as menu. Time slowed to a crawl, and the world lost color and focus as a... Time slowed to a crawl, and the world lost color and focus as a menu appeared in front of me. Available Pyro-maw abilities. Available Pyro-maw abilities. Rend. Powerful claw attacks that deal ×2 body damage. Blast shield. Wreath yourself in flames, dealing fire damage to attackers. Fireball. Expel a blast of fire that deals fire damage. After a moment of indecisive panic, I narrowed my eyes and focused. Blast shield.
You have gained Blast Shield. You drain 55 points of strength. You regain 200 HP. You deal 740 damage.
As time sped up again, the Pyro-Maw chomped one free tentacle, its remaining saber tooth puncturing my durable armor and piercing flesh. I held on anyway, shoving the bladed ends of my prehensile... I can never remember how to pronounce this one. I held on anyway, shoving the bladed ends of my prehensile... shoving the bladed ends of my prehensile arms deep into the creature's torso, penetrating muscle, then organs. The cat stumbled to its chest, the flames guttering, muscles sagging. Clive screamed in sympathetic agony, clutching his chest.
You have conquered your rivals, Clive Magazine and Blaze. You gained 273 XP. You are level 10.
The stag bellowed, swinging its burning crown of antlers in the direction of Venara, who was running out of hell pigs to eat. I pulled my appendages out of the dead Pyro-Maw and whirled around to face destiny. Venara beat its chest with 2 arms and spread the other 2 like a wrestler, circling us as we squared off with it. The Runtina pawed at the ground, lowering his head in challenge while I began to pad to the right. As I focused on Venara, an HP bar filled at the bottom of my HUD.
HP, 46,720 out of 50,000.
I glanced at my own HP. It was now just over 5,000. Flank it! Flank it! Flank it! I thought, desperately hoping the stag could understand me. Then, without waiting, I charged to the side. Venara swung around the room with wild haymaker blows, smashing the altar in half and flinging chunks of obsidian into the air. I skidded on pure reflex, almost running right into its fist as one slammed it down in front of me. I think that was one. I skidded on pure reflex, almost running right into it. I skidded on pure reflex, almost running right into its fist as one slammed down in front of me. Another fist came at me from my right. I reared up with the instincts of a human fighter, balling my front claws and deflecting the blow away before ducking in under its guard. The shock of the blow numbed my arm and shaved 500 HP off my bar, but I nailed it with The shock of the blow numbed my arm and shaved 500 HP off my bar, but I nailed it with all 4 tentacles before rolling. But I nailed it with all 4 tentacles before rolling away. Venara was big and heavy. I was light and nimble. I danced around it, stabbing at every chance I got.
Venara HP, 42,910 out of 50,000.
The stag finally caught on. He bounded to the other side, threw his head up, and launched a barrage of flaming missiles from his antlers that burst against the ape's back. The boss's HP dropped another 700 points. Venara roared, twisting from the waist to try and smash the deer-like legion into the ground, but the Runtina was already out of arm's reach. I launched myself at the boss like a velociraptor, claws and teeth out. They hit, and I hung on, tearing mouthfuls of rotten flesh and stinking fur from his ribs until he backhanded. They hit, and I hung on, tearing mouthfuls of rotten flesh and stinking fur from his ribs until he backhanded. They hit, and I hung on, tearing mouthfuls of rotten flesh and stinking fur from his ribs until he backhanded and sent me flying into the nearest wall. I hit the stone with a crunch and kissed 440 HP goodbye, flopping awkwardly to the ground. Oh boy. Lord have mercy. Clive was barely 8 feet from me, his crossbow clutched in white-knuckled hands. His thin face was scarlet with rage. Lord have mercy. You motherfucking Reaper. You were really after all. You motherfucking Reaper. You were real after all. I gaped my jaws at him in a toothy smile. And while he was distracted, one of my punch puds darted forward and smacked the weapon from his hands. I charged him, snapping and snarling. He stumbled away and hit the wall, throwing his hands up in front of his face. I barely nipped one of his palms just before I launched sideways into the air and back into the fight. My servine battle buddy was being pushed back toward the pale girl. She clung to one of the pillars, paralyzed by shock. The stag put himself between her and Venara, panting from pain and stress. His hooves and horns were white-hot, smoking and sparking as he tapped some core of inner strength and ignited himself once more. The gorilla raised his fists, and by the way the stag wasn't running, I knew that he was about to lay his life down for this woman. I bounded like a greyhound and leaped onto Venara's back, raking the flesh down his spine. He stopped trying to crush the Runtina and roared, twisting unnaturally at the waist. As he reached around, I caught his arm with 2 tentacles. The needles at the end shot out and embedded themselves into the monster's limb, anchoring me as the gorilla bellowed and tore me from his back. I glimpsed filthy yellow fangs and began kicking his face with my back feet, raking him. Another pair of prehensile limbs grasped his forearm. I used the tentacles to torque his wrist and pulled down against the joint as hard as I could. Venara howled as his elbow snapped. Venara howled as his elbow snapped and tore away. Venara howled as his elbow snapped and tore away with a grisly, wet sound. His HP dropped by a full 1,000 points. The other hands grasped my back. I snarled and flexed my stolen ability, Inferno Shield. I snarled and flexed my stolen ability, Inferno Shield. I snarled. I snarled. I snarled. I snarled. I snarled and flexed. I snarled. I snarled and flexed my stolen ability. I snarled and flexed my stolen ability. I snarled and flexed my stolen ability, blast shield. I snarled and flexed my stolen ability. There we go. All right. The blast shield. Flames roared out of my body just as they had for the saber-tooth. The fire seared the stinking fur off Venara's arm and caused his hands to spasm with agony. The ape dropped me, and I discovered something new about myself. The ape dropped me. The ape dropped me, and I discovered something new about myself. Not only were my tentacles strong enough to easily hold my body weight, they could also propel me forward. I shoved his arm into the air, caught the side of his head with my foreclaws, and twisted his neck with inhuman strength.
You deal a mortal blow. Venara HP, 25,110 out of 50,000.
Venara's head snapped around, cracking with a dull, wet sound. His motions became jerky and uncoordinated, and he crashed forward onto the remains of the altar. But he wasn't dead. The motherfucker was reaching for his own head, twisting it back into position. Before he could finish, the stag threw his antlers up and lashed out with flaming whips of raw energy. They slashed into and sliced the huge undead creature with a hiss of foul smoke and the stench of burning hair, taking its injured arm off at the shoulder and its weakened head from its shoulders. It was some kind of extreme mortal blow. The boss's HP suddenly dropped to 0, and it collapsed into the puddle of blood and guts that surrounded the altar. The stag stamped his sparking hooves viciously at Clive, and the few other surviving hell pigs huddled against the other side of the chamber, then moaned and turned back to the trembling girl. Panting, flanks heaving, I fell back, only to stop when a flash of white caught the corner of my eye. I turned my head to see the albino girl frantically signing. Not at the other Legion, who didn't seem to understand what she was saying. She was signing at me.
Watch out! Watch out!
She stabbed 2 fingers toward me frantically.
Venara! It's not finished!
I spun around just in time to see Venara grasp the top of its head and rotate it back into place, gluing the severed halves of its neck with sickly green light. Then it roared, a guttural, hollow sound. That probably would have made me shit myself if I'd still been human. The Runtino whirled back, eyes widening as Venara lurched to its feet. The Runtino whirled back, eyes widening as Venara lurched to its feet, picked up. The Runtino whirled back, eyes widening as Venara lurched. The Runtino whirled back, eyes widening as Venara lurched to its. The Runtino whirled back, eyes widening as Venara lurched to its feet, picked up the broken altar, and threw the 2 halves of it. And threw the 2 halves of it, one at me and one at the stag. I rolled down and to the side, avoiding the ton of stone that flew past me and crumpled into the barrier sealing the door. The Runtina did not. Instead, he stayed between the path of the rock and the girl, letting out one last burst of power. The rock shattered around him, most of it slagging to magma on contact, but the force of the blow flung the Legion into the air. The girl screamed aloud as his body smashed into the temple pillar she'd used for cover. The pillar survived, but the Legion let out a bleeding cry of pain and flopped to the ground, senseless.
Kaya!
She ran to him. Venara let out another ear-splitting roar and jumped up to grasp the gap between the walls and roof, the same gap I'd used to get inside the arena. It began to swing across the upper level toward me, using 2 arms to monkey around, and the third functioning arm to rip out and fling huge pieces of stone at me. I let out a girly yip and sprung away, dodging and running in the hope the barrage would stop. It didn't. As long as I dodged, Venara just kept swinging around, slowly filling the temple with rubble. My stamina was down into the orange already, thanks to all the jumping and leaping I was doing. There was nowhere to hide. I had to attack. I gathered myself and charged at one of the pillars, bounding forward and then up. At the apex of the climb, I jumped out, claws outstretched, and collided with the ape's chest. It only had 1 free arm, but the limbs snapped around me like a vice, crushing me even as I went for the beast's throat. I gathered psionic energy into a second blast shield, tentacles whipping around its wrist and hauling back. Burned, bleeding, and desperate, I tore at his neck with my jaws, gouging out fur, skin, and then rotten chunks of meat. My back feet raked, claws pulling through the gorilla's belly. He stopped trying to crush me and began trying to push me away, then dropped back to the ground, freeing up 2 of his arms. The last thing I needed while fighting this thing was for it to have more arms.
AoE! AoE!
The deaf girl finger-spelled the letters frantically, ducking behind the next pillar along. Sure enough, Venara, clutching its head in one hand and struggling to hold its guts in with another, clawed at the air as green fire boiled up into its mouth. I bolted back off the ground, climbing a pillar like a bear scaling a tree, and scuttled up onto the edge of the second floor, just as a burst of fetid green energy exploded out in concentric rings across the floor. There was a collective scream from the remaining hell pigs as the shockwave rolled through them, obliterating their ranks. The Runtina jerked and thrashed, then fell still. Damn it. I sprung out from the wall as the boss finished yodeling and landed on him. My jaws clamped around his skull. I lashed from side to side, ripping the green goo now holding his head onto his neck. It was stronger than it looked, stretching and fraying strand by strand. Venara bellowed, punching my flanks, but I had 3 more functioning limbs than he did, and turned the blows away, slowly but surely. I ripped his head off a second time and threw it to the ground. Venara bellowed, punching my flanks, but I had 3 more functioning limbs than he did, and turned the blows away as, slowly but surely, I ripped his head off a second time and threw it to the ground. The boss's body spasmed, hands clawing at the air. I jumped back and had about a split second of smugness before I was snatched out of my leap and crushed against the huge ape's chest. Just fucking die! My HP began to plummet, 500 points a second. I did the only thing I could think to do. I clamped my jaws together and plunged my sharp, bullet-shaped muzzle into one of the gaping, bloodless wounds on the motherfucker's chest. Just fucking die! My HP began to plummet. All right, that's the end of that chapter. That was pretty quick, actually. And 6, on to chapter 7. How long was that? So that's 15 minutes. Yeah, 15 minutes, and I've been in here 32, so yeah, about 1 to 2 ratio right now, not too bad. Chapter 7. Agony. Chapter 7. Agony, real pain swept through my body as I forced my armored head forward toward the monster's sick, slushy heartbeat. Flesh and bone parted, and when I felt the organ tickle my snout, I levered my jaw apart. Flesh and bone parted, and when I felt the organ tickle my snout, I levered my jaws apart. Flesh and bone parted, and when I felt the organ tickle my snout, flesh and bone parted, and when I felt the organ tickle my snout, I levered my jaws apart and tore at it with panicked strength. Immense pressure bore down on my spine. With the last of my stamina, I surged forward to grasp his heart in my teeth, then ripped it free in an explosion of dark green slime. The headless corpse stumbled to its knees, legs twitching, and then collapsed bonelessly to the floor. I dropped to the ground in front of it, spat the heart to the floor, and was just about to breathe a sigh of relief when I was reamed by about 1 million system messages the HUD had been keeping out of my view during combat.
You have defeated Venara. You earned a Venara Award tribute. You gained 500 XP. You are level 14. You have obtained a mandala, Hridaya, the Earth of Earth. Meditate on this mandala to gain new abilities and learn its meaning. Congratulations, you have passed 1,000 viewers. You have been granted a Copper Arena tribute. You have 153 new subscribers. Congratulations! You have exceeded 100 spectator subscriptions within your first 24 hours. You have been granted a Silver Fame tribute. You have gained a patron, Cold Fox. You have earned a Silver Milestone Pack. Gold Fox has sent you a bronze patron. Gold Fox has sent you a bronze patron tribute. There are still hostiles in the boss arena. You must defeat all enemies to exit.
Great. Great. A patron. I had my first stalker. Tail and puds lashing. Great. A patron. I had my first stalker. Tail and puds lashing over my back. I made sure the girl was behind me, then slowly turned to face Clive and the 4 still living hellpigs. Whoa, wait! Clive got to his feet. Ah, now, look here, Mr. Reaper. You're a smart one, ain't you? Maybe even smart enough to understand me, eh? Maybe we can sort something out? You know, like gentlemen. Now look here, Mr. Reaper. You're a smart one, ain't you? Maybe even smart enough to understand me, eh? Maybe we can sort something out? You know, like gentlemen. I snorted a wad. I snorted a wad of Vanara goo from one of my many nostrils, then pulled my lips all the way back over my fangs with a low, rumbling snarl. All of the pigs, except Clive, flinched. His henchmen scrambled for weapons, but Clive waved them back and took a step forward, flashing me a scar-twisted, gap-toothed smile. I'm right, aren't I? There's an honest-to-God human mind in that head of yours. I'm right, aren't I? There's an honest-to-God human mind in that head of yours. His twangy, good old boy accent became much milder as he stopped exaggerating it for the camera. Look, we somehow got off on the wrong foot. But hear me out. We need strong fighters like you, mister. Real men. Men who take what belongs to them. I snorted at him, lashing my tentacles around so the points were all angled at his head. I'm a war leader in the Hellpigs. I got connections to sponsors, guys who know what's happening on the outside. Clive was sweating like a whore in church, but if there was something I could give the guy credit for, he had balls. Most people, like the 4 guys now cringing back against the wall, would have been wetting their pants. People who can talk to you and tell you how you got here. Why you're here. Clive's beady eyes. I narrowed my eyes back. But his words gave me pause. Clive's beady eyes were far keener than his eccentric appearance. Clive's beady eyes were far keener than his eccentric appearance led on. There was a brain behind those tusks. You and me, we're the same. We woke up on the beach. No memories. No fucking idea what's going on. No idea how we got here or who sent us. Well, I know now. I got family on the outside who are safe thanks to my position here. And it's not really as bad as it looks either. If you're thinking I'm a vicious son of a bitch, it's only because I know for sure that no one's really dying. If you're thinking I'm a vicious son of a bitch, it's only because I know for sure that no one's really dying when we niner them. Survival of the fittest is just a fucked up role-playing game, mister. Hey, James is here. Hey, James.
Hello.
Hello, you have cat.
I do.
James has a beautiful, floofy cat.
We can do the Lion King thing.
No, not bothered at all.
Not in the slightest.
How are you
She's
doing today?
11 too. She's old.
She's old, eh? Oh, that's as old as Piper.
Mm-hmm.
Piper would not let me do that, though.
Yeah. Muriel's been like this ever since she was a kitten. She gives no fucks whatsoever. Just
All right. Well, I'm making good progress here. I think I might actually be able to finish this set today, so I'm going to keep on pushing through.
nice.
A role-playing game, mister. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a flash of white. Excuse me. The albino girl had scavenged some clothes for herself and was now mostly dressed. Video games being what they were, the female Hellpig's armor was mysteriously a lot scantier than the men's. She'd left the gloves and helmet off, so I could see her hands and facial expressions, two vital components of sign language. You speak sign? You speak sign, right? She signed, stepping up beside me. I brought my right paw up, curled it into a fist, and made a knocking motion as I nodded. The sign for yes. The Tusk Boy's lying. People who lose all their lives are wiped from the game and deleted, and the AI doesn't let sponsored players tell people about their pasts. This guy's a piece of shit. The woman's hands and expressions had the fluidity and speed of a native speaker. You killed his brute, which means he has his command collar back. I don't know how, but he's got a plan to try and replace the collar you're wearing, and once he does, he'll control you. Clive glanced at her gestures, uncomprehending. The hell is she doing? I looked between the pair of them, back and forth. I swear that I'm not just trying to save my own ass. I know this game as well as he does. He's lying to you. Clive made an insulting, flippant impression of sign language, jangling his fingers together. Making fun of me, are you? Making fun of me, are you? What are you, fucking crip or something? I didn't have the right anatomy, lips, to reply with the sign for okay, but there were other ways to answer without speaking. I put my head down and ran at... I didn't have the right anatomy, lips. I didn't have the right anatomy, lips, to reply with the sign for okay, but there were other ways to answer questions. But there were other ways to answer without speaking. I put my head down and ran straight at Clive, jaws agape. Oh, you stinking! Oh, you stinking! Whatever he was about to say was cut off as I took him to the... ground. His scream of agony cut as teeth sheared through hide and flesh. While he gurgled his life onto the stones, I ran down each of the other Hellpigs, pouncing them like the biggest of pumas. Screams pierced the air as blood sprayed and flesh flew. My new lady friend shrank back against the remains of the altar, clutching it, but not looking away. You have defeated your enemies. You gained 121 XP. You are now level 15. The boss arena will open in 60 seconds. Okay.
Yeah, that's a fun chapter.
Yeah, the whole boss fight with Venara.
Yeah, just for your own characterization, or like I guess for your own visualization,
Sure.
Angel isn't quite that tentative. She's
Okay.
a bit more forceful.
Sure. I'll make sure I get good direction notes for Tiana.
Yeah, you really need to channel your inner like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Oh, really? Okay.
She's
60 seconds.
She is a strong-willed.
That sounds good. Okay, I won't make her so demure.
60 seconds.
For my placeholders. I'll leave that to chorus. Thankfully, we had a grace period because the hell pigs were already howling outside the gates. The guys who'd died in here had respawned. The guys who'd died in here had respawned in the camp, and they were getting ready to gank us the moment the doors opened. 60 seconds was just enough time to prepare for this exact PvP kill-stealing scenario. Turning to the girl, I struggled with what to do. Turning to the girl, I struggled with what to do. I could make the hand gestures for ASL, but I didn't have a face capable of holding a proper conversation. But I was a psionic legion. Right? Could I use telepathy? I concentrated as hard as I could. We have to get out of here. We have to get out of here. There's a way through the roof. The girl flinched like I'd snapped her, clutching her head with one hand. She angrily and quickly signed with the other. Ow! Ow! What was that? Sorry. Too loud. I reeled back the concentration a bit. First time communicating with a real, live human person. Sorry. Too loud. Sorry. Too loud. I reeled back. First time communicating with a real, live human person. She pawed at her face, grimacing. Then I realized I was defaulting to speech telepathy. If she'd been born deaf, like my sister, the sounds were jangling around in her head but not making sense. I couldn't remember what I looked like as a human, so I made up a picture of Noodles the human. Big, brawny, good cheekbones, nice hands. I tried projecting the image to her, speaking with a ghostly expression and gesture instead of spoken words. We have to go. We have to go. We have to go. We have to go. Understanding dawned on her. Stricken, she pointed back at the body of the stag. We can't leave Kaya. They killed my... We can't leave Kaya. They killed my commander, Sam. Kaya was her legion. If they take him, they'll collar him. I was about to tell her that he was already an ex-Runtina when the great creature gave a spasmodic kick of its front legs, then lifted its antlered head from the floor. When he saw the pair of us, he moaned and lurched up onto his knees. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. I tried pacing around, honking to get its attention. The deer shook his head, eyes unfocused. They were full of grief and terror, but he didn't respond to my mental urging. However, he knew the girl, orienting on her as she ran over and helped him rise. With her help, he clambered unsteadily to his feet. I'm sorry, Kaya. The girl voiced aloud. It says here in thickly accented English. Do we want to keep her, I think we talked about the accent not being too thick. How do we want to do this?
Yeah, I actually agree with you there. We should omit that. I may, as you're going through and you're finding a couple of errata here and there, I'll actually let the editor at Aethon know as well.
Yeah, sure.
Those
The
are
girl
those are
voiced.
like vestigial things, I think.
Yeah. The girl voiced aloud. She was crying now. She was crying now. She was crying now, tears washing thin trails through the dirt and blood on her. She was crying now, tears washing thin trails through the dirt and blood on her face. They took all my heals, my weapons, everything. Sam's dead. I could try collaring you. We can try and get out of here. We have to. Kaya looked to the shuddering door, nostrils flaring. Then he looked to the girl with eyes dulled by pain. Then he turned to me. For several seconds, his gaze bore into mine. There were no words. Got it, Chief. Got it, Chief. I gave him a sharp nod. Sharp nod? Whoops. Did you shart? I did. Did you?
No one likes the sharp nod.
No one does. I gave him a sharp nod, then turned my head to the girl. Come on, we're out of here. Come on, we're out of here. But I can't just leave him. They'll kill him or collar him. We don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. He's on his last legs. He can't climb the walls, and there's no way out of here for him except through those gates. I went down to all fours and jabbed toward my back with one tentacle, emphatically. Emphatically. Moaning with frustration, the girl climbed my elbow and pulled herself onto my back. Stay alive, Kaya. I'll find you one day. I'll free you. I promise. The stag made no sign of understanding, staring at the rocking temple gate. The girl grasped two tentacles at the base, and I curled one around her back to hold her in. The girl grasped two tentacles at the base. Oh, hey, Belltube. Is that Brian? The girl grasped two tentacles at the base, and I curled one around her back to hold her in her seat. I sprung away, scaling the nearest pillar until we reached the opening along the roof. I vaulted through, keeping my passenger low to my back, and spared one last look at Kaya. He had his feet planted and his shoulders set, facing the door with the murderous intensity of a man with one pure, unwavering desire: to kill as many motherfucking hell pigs as he could before he died. Godspeed. Godspeed, I thought, and bounded out into the night. Nice. Godspeed, I thought, and bound. All right. That's the end of that chapter. And 7. All right, I think I got time for one more chapter, and then that's the end of this set, and that is the end of the cold reads. Yeah. Brian of Belltube, I believe. So Belltube is a YouTube review channel. Brian reviews books and a lot of like fantasy and sci-fi, and he's reviewed a couple Sound Booth Theater titles. I believe Dungeon Crawler Carl. He did Dungeon in the Clouds as well, which I sent him.
I sense a running theme so far.
Dungeon. Brian's into dungeons. I don't know about that, but yeah, cool guy though.
Me too, Brian. Me too.
Yeah, so welcome. I'm glad you're here, Brian, and thanks for saying hi. And if you like YouTube review channels for like lit RPG and fantasy and all that good stuff, then yeah, definitely go check it out and subscribe. And
the question is, has Brian listened to Alchemy yet?
Has Brian listened to Alchemy? That's a good question. Alchemy Online is the first series that I worked on with James Osiris Baldwin here. And it's a fun series, very Final Fantasy kind of style. And
We've got
just a
over
huge cast
10,000
of
ratings.
characters.
Yeah, I checked yesterday. We've got over like 10,000 ratings now. We're closing in on 11,000.
This is for the audio?
Yeah.
Wow, nice. Oh, well, thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. Cool. Okay, so chapter 8. Let me get some more water and then I'll jump right in. All right. Round 2. And yeah, with the whole Infernal Shield versus Blast Shield, it was Blast Shield and then it became Inferno Shield afterwards. Here are the 2 takes. I snarled and flexed my stolen ability, Inferno Shield. I snarled and flexed my stolen ability, Blast Shield.
Yeah, stick with the first one, and I'll let the editor know that we need to change it in the final manuscript.
Oh, well, it's actually, so it's Blast Shield everywhere except for the one place.
Oh, yeah, that's what I mean. Stick with Blast Shield.
Blast Shield, okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Stick with whatever one is the one that's used the most.
Is the one that is going to require the least amount of retakes?
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, it was just the one time, so I think that'll be fine. All right, the final chapter of this set and of the cold reads. If you didn't know, these cold reads are going to be available on Soundbooth Theater Live, the YouTube channel, but if you'd rather listen to them on the Soundbooth Theater platform, they will be coming there as well. A little bit cleaned up here and there, removing some gaps in the audio, so it's just a bit more of a seamless experience. Still rough, still uncut, still acoustic, not digital. Well, actually, I guess it is digital, but it's not AI. I am not AI. Yes, thank God for not birthing me into this world as an AI. Okay, chapter 8. Here we go. Chapter 8. We fled into the pitch-black jundle.
Jundle.
We fled into the pitch black jungle that surrounded the city of the apes, angling north. My ghostly passenger, unable to see or hear, clung to the back and... My ghostly passenger, unable to see or hear, clung to my back and trusted I wouldn't hurl us into quicksand or off the edge of a ravine. I didn't stop running until my stamina bar was blinking red after about 5 miles at a flat sprint. The journey had been made on instinct alone, and when we stopped, I realized we were in a different biome. The surrounding forest was much rockier, drier, and less humid, and it was noisy as hell. Dinosaurs bellowed, apes chattered, birds shrieked and whooped in the towering kapok trees that soared around above us. How do I pronounce that? Is it kapok?
K-pop.
Kapok. Ring kapok. Dinosaurs bellowed, apes chattered, birds shrieked and whooped in the towering kapok trees that soared above and around us. The sounds ricocheted through the bark-draped branches, but there was no one and nothing to be seen. There was, however, a lot to smell. Let's see here. Let's see here. I muttered inwardly, absently sniffing around the base of one of the enormous kapoks. Oh, des gens nombreux. Oh, de les gens one. Oh, de les gens. Oh, de Legion number 1, tastefully aged. And... oh, wonderful. That's T-Rex piss. What are you doing? What are you doing? The girl leaned around my head and signed with one hand, her expression quizzical. I froze in the question. I froze as the question sank in, because I was in fact busily sniffing the marking scents left by a half-dozen. I froze as the question sank in, because I was, in fact, busily sniffing the marking scents left by half a dozen dinosaurs and several legions. My jaws were parted, upper lip curled back over my teeth, all nostril vents flared. Just checking my P-mail. Checking my P-mail. I signed telepathically, snorting out of cloud. I signed telepathically, snorting out a cloud of acrid. I signed telepathically, snorting out a cloud of acrid air. You know, normal human stuff.
You have identified new creature, T-Rex. New creature discovered, terror bird. You have identified dire wolf. New legion detected, pain spore, lesser legion. New legion detected, whip horse, greater legion.
The hell is a whip horse? The hell is a whip horse? Some kind of horse girl legion? Sounds weak. I dismissed the flurry of system notifications, turning my snout and scenting for water. When I found it, I followed my nose down a series of small, crumbling, dusty cliffs to a gurgling brown river. The girl practically vaulted from my back when she spotted the water. She skidded to her knees by the edge of the river, greedily scooping and drinking with her hands. With her weight off my back, I was suddenly aware of how worn out, strung out, and sore I really was. There wasn't a single meter in my HUD that wasn't below 30%. Groaning, I made my way to the river bank and flopped down like a tired dog. The girl's shoulders hunched as I came into her peripheral view. She turned to me, scowling, with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion.
How come you speak sign?
My sister, I think. My sister, I think. I dropped my chin to the tops of my paws. Can't remember anything. Can't remember anything else about her, but I know she was deaf. She learned ASL as a kid, and I must have learned it with her. Her name was Sam, too. Hell of a coincidence. Her name was Sam, too. Her name was Sam, too. Her name was Sam, too. Hell of a coincidence.
Coincidence? Coincidence? Coincidence?
The girl signed back. The girl signed back. She looked confused. Well, your name's Sam, right? Sam 7 Lives? Her expression dropped.
Oh, no, I'm not Sam. Sam was my, she was my Vigilas. Kind of like a sergeant. Was my Vigilas.
Vigilas.
She was my Vigilas. She was my Vigilas.
The way her scent shifted and her fingers fumbled told me that Sam the Vigilas hadn't come. The way her scent shifted and her fingers fumbled told me that Sam the Vigilas hadn't just been her sergeant. She might not have even just been her friend. Sam was the lady who enslaved the Runtina? Kaya? The girl's brows furrowed.
She was Kaya's trainer. She didn't enslave him.
I thought that's how this place worked. Human gladiators enslaving legions like me so they can go punch God in the face. Something like that. She blinked a couple of times, then turned away with an expression of real sorrow. Most people here are like that, she signed. She signed after a pause. Sam was different. But she's dead now. They ninered her on that fucking altar. Niner? I cocked my head. As in they killed her over and over to burn through her remaining lives. You know, perma-killing. It's just the slang around here. The girl hunched into herself, staring over the water. Crouched in her skimpy rag bikini, she looked as fragile as spun glass. Her skin was covered in mud and blood, her brilliant white hair snarled with filth. She looked like she needed a hug. She looked like she needed a hug. I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm really sorry about your friends. I wrapped my tail around my body and let out a wheezy sigh. What's your name, kid? Bright, wary eyes darted toward me. Talk to me after a bath. Talk to me after a bath. I need to wash this shit off and repair these clothes. Knock yourself out. I gestured generously toward the water. Her eyes narrowed to pale slits. I can't repair my clothes while I'm wearing them. I heaved a much heavier sigh and pushed myself back up, causing a fresh wave of dull pain to spread through my head and the overworked muscles of my chest. Okay, we're working together. Okay, while we're working together, let me get something straight. You're a human woman who's maybe 120 pounds soaking wet. I am a 2-ton venomous murder beast, and if you were to look under my tail and behold the glory that is the USS Battleship Noodles, you'd be crossing yourself and asking for an old priest and a young priest. Let me state with absolute certainty that we are in no way, shape, or form physically compatible. Your virtue is guaranteed around me. Okay? The girl ground the heels of her palms against her eyes for a couple moments. Fine, okay. Just don't look, all right? I made a show of getting up, turning around a couple of times, then flumping back down to the ground with my back turned to her and my paws over my eyes. After several minutes of splashing, I felt a small, wet hand tap the end of my tail. When I looked up and around, the girl was there, squatting behind me on the balls of her feet. Now she was clean. There was an unearthly beauty about her. Her chest was... Now she was clean. There was an unearthly beauty about her. Her chest was little more than a faint swell under her ragged cut-off tank, which made her collarbones, long neck, and elegant jaw stand out all the more. Her skin was currently a pale, unearthly pink, her lips flushed from the cold water. Her eyelashes were pure white, like a fringe of frost around her white-set eyes. Her eyelashes were pure white, like a fringe of frost around her wide-set eyes, which were an unusually intense blue. In the real world, a model agency would have snapped her up. In a heartbeat. Thank you. Thank you, by the way, for helping me back there. The girl paused, signing, and wrung her hair out. It was still a little brownish from the creek water. I've never met a sentient brute before. Kaya was the closest thing. No worries. I'm sorry about Kaya. He seemed like an okay dude. A dear dude. He was. The girl's mouth twisted down in momentary grief. But that's how this place is. Everyone always climbing on top of each other, struggling to get out of the jungle and tearing each other down. It's like a bucket of crabs. Sam. She was too sweet for this place, and she knew it. Kaya did too, I think. If he'd had more of his humanity, if he'd been able to communicate like you can, maybe things would have been different. He seemed pretty damn human to me. I stretched my forelimbs out in front of me and arched my back. Groaning in pleasure as my spine popped. You were talking to him. He kinda talked back. You were talking to him. He kinda talked back. Kind of. He has some of his mind left, but whoever he was on the outside, the fuckers that sent us here, took that away from him. Let him more like a smart animal, you know? I thought back to Dimitri's letter, how he'd said he'd asked the society to let me keep my faculties so he could torture me. Guess I got lucky. Anyway, you got a name? Doesn't have to be your real one, but I'm already tired of thinking of you as that girl. She chewed her lip for a moment. Finally, she lifted her chin. Everyone here calls me Angel. Angel. Suits you. They all say that, too. The ghost of a smile passed over the girl's mouth. What about you? You got a collar on? You have a name to go with it? That's my collar. That's my collar. That's my collar. I struck a heroic pose. And my name is Noodles. Angel blinked a couple of times. Your name is... what? His Radiance MT Noodles the Fourth, I replied proudly. PhD. She flashed me a look of disbelief. You're a Reaper Nemesis, one of the most powerful brutes in the entire game. And your name is Noodles? MT Noodles. I finger-signed the first two letters for emphasis. The fourth, friend-shaped people can skip the titles. Those are for formal occasions, like bar mitzvahs and pit fights. If we attend any bar mitzvah pit fights, please introduce me as Dr. Noodles. Angel stared. In wonder, I assumed. The MT stands for murder tentacles, I added helpfully. She fingerspelled the first letter, pinching the bridge of her nose with the other hand. I take back the stuff about you being intelligent. Okay, sheesh. I'm not really a doctor. Hard to believe, I know. I was a cop, I think, which means I definitely didn't have a degree. I probably ate crayons in high school, but come on. Who needs a piece of paper in a frame when you got all this? I stood up on my back feet and flexed all 6 upper limbs like some weird Hindu god. Welcome to the gun show. Welcome to the gun show, baby. Angel tried really hard to glare at me, but lasted maybe 2 seconds before she cracked up. She broke down into her hands, giggling at first, then wild, howling laughter. She lost her balance and fell onto her ass on the dirt. Was it really that funny? I tilted my head. She sobbed, half laughter, half tears. No! No! Yeah, that's what I thought. But you should laugh it out anyway. You just had a hell of a day. Angel signed for okay with one hand. While she worked her wiggles out, I dropped back to all fours and padded over to the water's edge, stuck my head down, and tried to figure out how to drink. It was more difficult than it should have been. When I tried to suck the water into my mouth, it went up my nose instead. This caused me to sneeze. A lot. After the burning stopped, I awkwardly lemmed with my tongue, hurling water all over my face in the process. Hurling water all over my own face in the process. When I turned back, Angel's hiccuping laughter had faded. She sat with her knees drawn to her chest, eyes reddened from a mixture of grief and released tension. She shook her head as I sat down in front of her. We can't stay here. This is no man's land. We're not even 10 miles out of Pig's territory. If we're going to survive this, we need to get back to Hope. Where is Hope? Where is Hope? Where is Hope? Fort Hope. Fort Hope. It's a place. Oops. Fort Hope. It's a place. She paused. She paused to sniff and rub her nose with her arm. The Iron Centurion's forward base on the northern edge of the warfront. Iron Centurions? Warfront? I squinted at her. Look, just so we're clear, I woke up here less than 6 hours ago with no idea where I am, who I am, or what the hell is going on. The only thing I had to go off was a lecture from Chorus and a letter from the crazy son of a bitch who murdered me. Or had me murdered, I'm not sure. Angel frowned. Oops. A letter? Yeah, like a message in my inbox. From some guy named Dmitri Solinov. Don't suppose that rings a bell? Afraid not. Angel shook her head. Weird that you'd wake up with a message. Damn. Well, first he killed me, and now he's after my sister and anyone else I cared about. So I don't suppose you're from the Seattle area and remember having a brother? Big, brawny, stunning good looks? No, I grew up in New Mexico between Deming and Las Cruces, and I'm only child. Sorry. She shook her head. She shook her head. Shit. I dropped my head. Even my tentacles sagged. Shit. I dropped my head. Even my tentacles sagged. Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I got no damn idea what to do from here. Guess I'm gonna have to find Arcadia and choke the little chode until he gives me my memories back. Arcadia? The first realm? Angel's eyes bugged. I guess. I pulled up the letter and scanned it, refreshing myself on the crazy. If you're reading this, congratulations, you made it to Arcadia. Now you're in my world. That's what he said. Angel pressed her lips together in a thin line. Then Dmitri has to be one of the champions of the entire frame. Arcadia is the first realm of purgatory. There might only be 5 players who've reached the 4th realm, and they're all sponsors. Frame. Frame as in... Oh, 1 second. Yeah, hello. Hey, how you doing? How was the bike ride?
That's good. It's
Okay.
cold out there.
Okay.
But I got back just before it started raining. But I wasn't able to. I went to Atwater, but I wasn't able to go to the pet shop. So
Oh, okay. No worries.
I'm probably just gonna like walk it now and go and get Peppers wet food and
Oh, you wanted to get wet food too. Right.
wet food, yeah, and treats.
Okay.
But I just wanted to see if you wanted me to wait for you. Do you feel like you need a walk?
I could use a walk, but I got a meeting at 3:30.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
What time is it now?
3:15.
Yeah, that's not.
Yeah, I definitely could use a walk though. Anyways, I'm
I
streaming.
can wait till after. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Alright, then I won't wait. Yeah.
Please take this part out of this stream. Alrighty.
Love you.
Love you too. Domesticing.
Indeed.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, these cold read videos kind of give people a sneak peek into the process and into the story as well, and maybe build a little bit of hype at the start of production, and then rather than it just being the book's out. So yeah, we have some fun. It's always great when James can join, or whatever author is being read. Frame as in should I leave that knock there and just end the chapter there? Frame as in
I like the Whiphorse line where he just offhandedly is like, sounds a
yeah. Oh, I remember that because yeah. I remember I knew to play it down because doesn't sound strong, sounds weak, because I remember that scene. That's a fun scene. Frame as in Eden frame? My head jerked as the artificial nerves in my new Reaper brain flashed. Eden frames, virtual afterlives for the dead, heavily regulated by governments around the world except when they weren't, like when they were being operated by corpos, or like black market coliseums. Corpos? Is that how I pronounce that?
Like corpos, like
being operated
it's short
by
for corporations, so
like when I see. Like when they were operated by corpos. Like when they were operated by corpos. Like when they were operated by corpos. Or like black market coliseums. Noodles? Angel cocked her head as she signed my name. Her eyes and the wiggling motion of her little fingers were the first things that came back into focus. Sorry, you, jogged my memory on something. I dropped down to the soft ground and tucked my paws under my chest. What are sponsoreds? There are two types of gladiators here. Sponsored gladiators and everyone else. Sponsoreds are people who, for one reason or another, have people on the outside who paid for them to be here and who support them like, an esports crew. They're usually still alive and plug into purgatory using full immersion rigs. Everyone else is brought here as meat for the sponsors to torture on camera to drive up ratings and earn prizes. Angel sat back as well, crossing her legs. Sponsors are bad news. They run everything here, and some of them are backed by the Paragon Society. I don't know for sure, but I'd bet this Dimitri guy is a society member who logs in and out and gets his rocks off. A lot of people probably pay him to watch him do it, too. The Paragon Society. Yeah. The Paragon Society. The rabbit hole deepens. Tell me what you know about him. Angel shrugged uncomfortably. All I have is a name. The guys who sent me to this hell, they stood outside my VR pod door and mentioned them half a dozen times. They didn't think I could hear them. They were right. But I can lip read, so fuck them. Who uploaded you? Angel's chalk-white skin flushed a deep, angry red as she scowled. Los Caballeros Carmesi. Mexican cartel. The name rang a faint bell somewhere deep in my memory. Nothing specific, only that I must have known about them. Nothing specific, only that I must have known about them enough to know they were some bad dudes. Take it you're not a sponsored. Take it you're not a sponsored. Take it you're not a sponsored. What else do you remember? Might be important. No, I'm not a sponsored. Angel's hands slashed on each sign, expression stormy. And stormy. As As for memories, mine are iffy. Everyone here has their memories amputated to an extent, most completely. But I remember some stuff, more than most people. Maybe because the bastards didn't know what to do with my brain. My eyes narrowed. What do you mean? The admins use the language centers of my brain to hunt down and remove memories the CIA doesn't want you to have. I've been deaf since I was born. Deaf. I've been deaf since I was born. That's funny. I can sign ASL, LSM, sign Spanish, plus I voice and lip read English and Spanish. They removed all my voiced memories and signed Spanish ones, but they left my ASL and LSM associated memories intact. I don't think they knew what they were looking for. My heart sank. LSM stood for Lengua de Señas Mexicana, Mexican Sign Language. I got that right?
I have no idea. My Spanish pronunciation is genuinely atrocious, so I'm not even going to try.
LSM stood for Lengua de Señas Mexicana.
I would ask...
it might be Mexicana. I could ask Nikki, actually.
Yeah, I would ask Nikki or someone that speaks
Lengua de Señas Mexicana. Okay. But I don't have time, so I'm going to actually just mark that. There we go. Sign. Sign language. Mexican Sign Language. Most hearing people thought of sign languages as being like the dominant spoken language of any given region, but with hand signs. That was mostly not true. Sign languages were their own thing, with unique grammar, vocabularies, and word order. As far as I could tell, I'd grown up bilingual and possibly trilingual, English, Russian, and ASL. But I didn't speak LSM. That meant that my Sam hadn't either. It was the mother of all serendipitous coincidences that I, the brother of a deaf woman, had run into a second member of the deaf community in this place. Had run into a second member of the deaf community in this place. Or was it? I've still got a few memories. Of Sam, of the outside world. Of Sam, of the world outside. Of Sam, of the world outside. I wonder if the same thing happened to me. I probably shouldn't be able to remember anything, but if they missed memories associated with sign, maybe I'll get 'em back. Anyway, guess you know some of how I ended up here now. How about you? This, cartel grab you off the street or something? She glanced at the sky, as if looking at one of the unseen cameras that followed us everywhere. I don't want to talk about it. Not here. Not after what just happened. No worries. I yawned and smacked my jaws a couple of times. I get it. Thanks. Anyway, we've been talking too long as it is. I need to get to Fort Hope and tell the Primus, the captain, what happened to the training camp. Angel paused to push herself up to her feet. If you don't want to come, I'll start walking, but if you do come, Captain Targent might know more about the sponsor you're looking for. Oh yeah? 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 That perked my interest. With the Sam lead exhausted, my only chance of solving this mess, and maybe avenging my untimely death, was dear, sweet Dimitri. Sam told me Targent has been around for ages, longer than most gladiators, which implies he's got sponsored connections. If we get into his good books, he might be willing to answer some careful questions. That's a big if. But I'll do my best to help you learn what we can about this Dimitri guy. It's the least I can do for helping me. Rumbling to myself, I looked back. Rumbling to myself, I looked back toward the river. How far is Fort Hope from here? Hang on. Angel opened her HUD. I saw the ghostly impression of a holographic display spread ahead of her. But couldn't make out any details. A long way by foot, about 80 kilometers. Kilometers? My brain farted on the conversion. Kilometers? My brain farted on the conversion. What's that in miles? What's that in miles? I don't know, 50 miles? Too long to run. I scoffed and stuck my chest out. For the time being, I chose to ignore my half-full stamina bar. Excuse me, but Marathon Traipser Noodles IV is more than able to run 50 miles. The question is, will you be able to... Excuse me, but Marathon Traipser Noodles IV is more than able to run 50 miles. The question is, will you be able to survive me? Angel massaged her brows for a moment. You are my punishment from God. I'll take that as a yes. Now get on, loser. We got a cross-country to run. There we go. Good stuff. There we go. Oh, stop pausing. I don't want analysis. I want to know how long this is. There we go. Great. And 8. And that is the end of the first set. Good stuff. James. That's the first set. That's the cold read.
Mm-hmm. So with the cold reads, like, do you do this as, like, is this the material that you're going to use when you master it, or is this just draft?
It's draft. You know, for the most part, it is. It's like all of my stuff is going to be there, but obviously all of, Angel is going to be changed.
Is feedback okay for, like?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. My only feedback, so I love Noodles' voice overall. I think he nailed him, got him down. The only thing I would say is during the more humorous parts, like when he's trying to lighten things up for Angel a bit with the Battleship Noodles stuff, it used to be a little brighter. You're still sort of keeping that like grim noir kind of voice while you're delivering it. Yeah, but he's kind of broken around, so you know, you can sort of perk him up a little. He doesn't have to be like, yeah, delivering this in this big bruising voice.
I've been kind of fighting against my instinct, which is to do that, because at the beginning session, I think we talked about him being more deadpan.
Yeah, he's relatively deadpan, but it sort of depends. Like when he's trying to cheer up, you know, Angel, he's not quite as deadpan, you know.
Got it.
Yeah,
cool.
There needs to be a little more nuance in it, I think, for the impact, because otherwise it sort of falls a bit flat.
Yeah, sure. Let me see if I can find that line.
Maybe just a bit more whininess.
Yeah, I woke up here less than 6. Yeah, damn. Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I got no damn idea what to do. If you're reading this, sorry.
It's before.
You are the Paragon Society. Take it, you're not a sponsor. Oh, actually, that might have been... Was that the last chapter? Or was that this chapter? Oh, no, it was this chapter.
It was this chapter, but it was just before that stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay. While we're working together, let me get something straight. You're a human woman who's maybe... I am a 2-ton venomous murder beast, and if you were to look under my tail and behold the glory that is the USS Battleship Noodles, you'd be crossing yourself and asking for an old priest and a young priest. Let me state with absolute certainty that we are in no way, shape, or form physically compatible. No worries.
Because I guess the thing with Noodles you've got to remember, right, is that he had a younger sister. So he will talk to Angel in that kind of fraternal sort of, you know, cheer ups his kind of way.
Guess I got lucky. Got it, yeah. Doesn't have to be your real one, but I'm... That's my collar. I struck a heroic, and my name is Noodles. Angel blinked, and my name is Radiance MT Noodles the Fourth. I replied proudly. PhD.
Yeah, and the other
Flash
thing
me.
with him character-wise is he actually does have a little bit of an ego.
Yeah.
He sort of makes out like he doesn't, but he actually kind of, he's a little bit, I wouldn't say vain, definitely a little egotistic, and not wholly aware of it. So, that's also a factor.
Right. Cool. Well, I'll keep that in mind as well.
But yes, I think overall it's really, really good.
Oh, whoops. Well, thank you. I wasn't able to answer there, but yes, Brian, send your email question over whenever you like. And look forward to hearing from you. I will keep that stuff in mind, James. I do have to run now, so I'm going to end the stream. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you, James, for being here. Thank you for everybody who's tuned in for the cold reads. And once again, you're going to be able to listen to these on the Soundbooth Theater app as well as YouTube. So if you prefer to listen on the app, then make sure you're keeping an eye on our newsletter, and you will be informed when it is all cleaned up and available. All right. Anything else you want to add, James?
No, it all sounds really good so far.
Sweet. Well, thank you very much. And I'll talk to you guys later. Got to hop into this meeting now.
Sure.
Take care.
Bye.